And we will take a few minutes this morning to talk to our kids this morning. So if you'll take your seat and listen to me for just a few minutes this morning. You can have your seat up there. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Christmas story that we've been talking about, right, in recent weeks. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about a story from the book of Genesis about Adam and Eve and their sin against God and the serpent. Do you remember who came into the garden? And God, because of their sin, pronounced curses on Adam, on Eve, and certainly on the serpent as well. And one of the things he said is that the woman, Eve, would have a child, and that child would come and would ultimately kill the snake. And the rest of the Old Testament really is about the coming of that child, who that child is. And so over the last couple of weeks, we've been kind of looking at some of the stories in the Old Testament that are talking about who that child of Eve is going to be. Now here's a pop quiz for you. Who can tell me what was the story about last week? Do you remember? Goliath. And who did Goliath go up against? David. We've heard that story before, but one of the things we talked about last week is that story really about David and Goliath? No. I mean, those are very real characters. David was a real boy. Goliath was a real giant. But one of the things Jesus tells us when he comes actually in his life and ministry and after his resurrection, he says, the Old Testament was about me. And you can go back and reread it. It was all about me. And David is a picture of Jesus. And who can remember what Goliath, the big giant who was undefeated, no one could ever beat him, who was he a picture of? Yeah, our sin, Satan. Even this week, I was talking about with our boys this morning. We've lost the battle this week against sin and Satan. We didn't want to. We were fighting. And we were just reminded, I need a David to come and do for me what, remember the Israelite army? Nobody wanted to step up against Goliath because they knew they couldn't overwhelm him. They needed one who would come on their behalf and win for them, and that was Jesus. So the Old Testament has been talking about the coming of Jesus. And for the last several weeks, we've been in the book of Isaiah, right? Isaiah chapter 7, I just read from Isaiah chapter 9, but sometimes we can miss who Isaiah was and what that book of the Bible is all about. So I want to read to you a little bit more about Isaiah, all right? And so if you'll give me your attention for just a few minutes, this really does play in to the message I'm about to preach. The title of this story is Operation No More Tears, all right? Operation No More Tears. Listen to this. The question is asked, do you know what your name means? Do any of you know? What does your name mean? My name is actually the color of a stone. Ambria, and it's the color of a stone. All right, anybody else? Well, it was what? White hot? Oh, white hawk. Well, very cool. Nice. Well, you got a good one. So Olivia, Peace, and Olive Branch. Any of our big kids know what their name means? Angel. Oh, I would have guessed that. I mean, Miss Angie, Brother Kimball. Miss. Oh, now is that the Kimball Jones version, or is that strange? Well, listen to this. All right, we're reading about Isaiah. There was once a man named Isaiah, and his name meant God to the rescue. Now that might sound like a bit of a funny name to you, but it was just the right name for Isaiah because God had a special job for Isaiah. You see, Isaiah's job was to listen to God and then to go and tell people what he had heard. Now, God let Isaiah know a secret. God had a plan. God was going to fix the world that got broken in the Garden of Eden. And he showed Isaiah his secret rescue plan entitled Operation No More Tears. This is the message God gave Isaiah. And it was kind of like a letter that God wrote to his children. So here's kind of a synopsis of Isaiah's letter to his little children. Dear little flock, God says, you're all wandering away from me like sheep in an open field. You've always been running away from me. And now you're lost, and you cannot find your way back. But I will not stop loving you. I'm going to come and find you. So I'm sending you a shepherd to look after you and love you. One who's going to come and pick you up and carry you to me. You've been stumbling around like people in a dark room. But into the darkness, a bright light will shine. It will chase away all the shadows like sunshine. A little baby will be born, a royal son. And his mommy will be a young girl who doesn't even have a husband. And her baby's name will be Emmanuel, which means God has come to live with us. He's one of King David's children's children. And he's also called the Prince of Peace. Yes, someone is going to come and rescue you. But he's not going to be who anyone expects. You kind of see the letter here that Isaiah is writing for God's people. The letter goes on. He will be like a king, but he won't live in a palace. And he won't have lots of money. In fact, he'll be poor, and he'll be a servant. But this king will heal the world. He will be a hero. He will fight for his people and rescue them from their enemies. But he won't have big armies, and he won't fight with swords. He will, in fact, make the blind to see. He'll make the lame leap like deer. What does it mean to be lame? Legs don't work, can't walk. He will make the lame leap like deer. He will make everything the way it was meant to be. But people will hate him, and they won't listen to him. He's going to be like a lamb, and he will suffer and die. You see, children, this is the secret rescue plan we made from the beginning of the world. It's the only way to get you back. But he won't stay dead. The servant, I will make him alive again. And one day, when he comes back to rule forever, the mountains and trees will dance and sing for joy. The earth will shout out loud. His fame will fill the whole earth as the waters cover the sea. Everything sad will come untrue. Even death is going to die. And he will wipe away every tear from every eye. Yes, the rescuer will come. Look for him. Watch for him. Wait for him. He will come. I will send him. I promise. And that really is the message of the book of Isaiah in a very, very simplified form. And in the passage we looked at last Sunday, Isaiah chapter 7, we were told that that child would come from a mommy who didn't have a husband. He's going to be born of a virgin. And in the passage I just read a minute ago, Isaiah chapter 9, he's going to come as a child, as a baby. You see, who is this one that God is promising to send who's going to fix everything that went wrong? Do you know? Who is this one? It is Jesus. That's the one that when God promised to Adam and Eve a Messiah who's going to come and crush the head of the serpent, he's talking about Jesus. And all those stories in the Old Testament, Noah's Ark, David and Goliath, all those Psalms we read sometimes before we pray, they're all about Jesus. Isaiah's letter, and Isaiah, God said, I'm sending you to a people who's not going to listen to you. But go and take this message. I'm sending my Messiah. I'm sending my Redeemer. Oh, that God would give us ears to hear and eyes to see. The message of Christmas is what? Jesus has come. God has done what he said he was going to do. Yes, sir. It was a different language, you're right. Yeah, they spoke a different language, different time, did a lot of different things, and how wonderful that God can communicate to everyone in every generation this message, no matter what our language, isn't it? That's a wonderful thing here. You know, in the passage I just read, Isaiah chapter 9, it says, in his zeal, the Lord of hosts will do it. And that, we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, but My takeaway there is God made the promise through Isaiah. He made it to Adam and Eve. He's made it all through the Old Testament. And God says, I don't need you to do anything. It's not you to fix your problem. I'm going to do it.